Welcome back, everyone. This is Tak Oda, CIO of Attaché for Business, joined by Lisa Hammond, our CEO and HR expert. We've been going through our list of top 10 mistakes that small businesses and entrepreneurs make when hiring employees. And now we're down to mistake number seven, right, Lisa?
Number seven.
Number seven, will you show us what it is?
Absolutely. Mistake number seven.
Poor interview skills. All right, let's just dive right into this one.
I think one of the things that small business owners do often, and people who don't have experience in corporations or working and interviewing a lot of people, is they'll start to interview people just personally. So each person will have a different interview. They'll start with, "Oh, hi, how are you?" and then tell me a little bit about yourself. I sat in on one interview where the person actually had the individual go through every single job that they had had from the beginning of their resume and explain what they did on that job, how they did it. I said it
Sounds
was
painful.
it was painful. It was like an hour and a half interview of just the person reciting everything they did on each job, and I was like, that actually was not helpful at all to finding out if this person's going to be good at this job.
Right. Maybe it gives you a sense of what their personality is after all that torture.
Well, it's maybe it shows the person has patience anyway.
Right. So what could this employer have done better there? What should they have done instead?
Yeah, what you want to do is you want to have some very clear goals in terms of your interviewing. What is it that you need to find out about this person to make sure they can do the job?
Hmm.
And one of the things that we've talked about before, which I completely recommend, is having a pre-interview questionnaire where you're asking those difficult questions and letting them write out their answers, but you're also getting a sense of their writing ability. And then you can ask them almost the same questions when you interview them and then go into more depth.
Gotcha. By the way, we're going to put a link to that video up here and be sure to subscribe and like this video so you hear about all this other stuff because we're going to keep referencing other stuff we've talked about throughout. So, all right. So yeah, that pre-interview questionnaire, just build on that.
Yeah. So build on that, find out, just dive deeper into the answers that they gave. And don't even give them those answers again. Don't say, "So in your pre-interview questionnaire, you said such and such." Just ask them the question again, because
Mm,
you may get a completely different answer, which tells you something.
right. Right.
Then the other thing you want to do with interviewing is you want to ask behaviorally based questions. So you want to
Mm,
ask questions and say, "Tell me a time when you did such and such." And you want to
mhm.
be really clear about getting a time that they did it, as opposed to, "Well, I would." You don't want the
No
hypothetical.
hypotheticals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In best situation, I know exactly what I should do. Here's what I should do. You
Right.
want what they've actually done in the past.
Perfect. Okay. So behavioral questions. Don't ask about every little thing they've ever done. Follow up on the pre-questionnaire, right?
Right.
Anything else?
Probably a whole lot of other things. The first thing you do when you interview somebody is you make them feel comfortable. So you want to start with some basic chit chat. How's the weather? Where are you? Okay. Well, I don't know about where are you. So the other thing,
Well, nowadays that might be a legitimate question, right?
exactly. So the other thing we want to do is we want to make sure we aren't asking illegal questions.
Mm,
So
okay.
you don't want to ask anything about their children. Do you have children? Are you married? You don't want to ask any personal questions like that.
Age, right? Yeah.
You don't want to ask age. You don't want to ask where they were born or where are you from. You don't want to ask a question like that.
Anything that might raise a flag about a discrimination case, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. One of the things that often happens once you develop a rapport with somebody is they start telling you things. So they start telling you, "Oh, well, my husband and I moved to such and such and such," or, my kids are this, that, and the other. And when they say something like that, you don't want to say, "Oh, how old are your kids?"
Mm, mhm.
Because, and it's such a natural thing to do.
Right, exactly.
then it's hard to stop yourself. But if at all possible, stop yourself, because as soon as you do that, you've just given them a reason to think that you didn't accept them for the job. And once you do that, then that becomes a discrimination,
Right,
possible discrimination case.
right. So you can't just go into it without any sort of guidelines. And I want to harken back to something you said at the very beginning about how people go in without a plan.
Mhm.
And I think one thing I've heard you also say is that it's important to have some standardization so that
Absolutely.
you're asking similar questions, right?
Right. Yeah,
I
you
think that relates to the pre-questionnaire idea too, because that at least that gives you some structure over what you're asking.
exactly. And the reason you want to do that is because you want to ask everybody pretty much the same questions, at least as a base, because then they can't say, well, they asked this person about this and me, they didn't ask me anything about it.
Right.
So not that they know what you asked the other person, but they might say, well, they never asked me about such and such. But if you can show you didn't ask anybody else about it, then that makes a lot of sense. Or they ask me about such and such, and you show you ask everybody else about it. Like if you ask, so, tell me about your prior experience having worked in X environment. And that's the only person you ask that question,
Hmm.
then that sets it up for discrimination too. And if you can't prove that you ask other people, so that's one reason of following your pre-interview guide or creating an interview questionnaire that you're going to then go through those questions one at a time.
Right. And I want to stress that this doesn't just benefit you because you're not discriminating and protecting yourself from a lawsuit, but you're also protecting yourself by asking the same kinds of questions to everybody. You're kind of preventing yourself from bias as well, right?
Yeah, you're preventing, and you're really comparing apples to apples.
Right.
Well, if you're asking everybody different questions, you don't really know what the skills are of one person versus another because you've asked them all different questions.
Right. And honestly, it is pretty easy to just go on like a feeling or a gut feeling and just be drawn by that and just skip questions or ask the wrong questions
Yeah,
and yeah, not holding yourself accountable there,
yeah,
whether or not someone else is holding you accountable.
exactly. So you want to have, good, solid interview skills. And we'll talk more about interviewing, in future videos and things because it's such an important skill for a manager to have.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this was a juicy one. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
See you soon. Remember, like, subscribe.